Funny
There
when
we
you
go.
said that. The huge difference. It reminded me of that movie Captain Ron with Martin Short, where he's like, "Now go, Rilla, Rilla, go, Gur." Huge difference, kids. Huge difference. Hi, my name is Mark M. Smelter. Welcome to Investor Hell. This is episode 9. I'm sitting here with Alexander Wallace. Now, kind of an interesting story about this one. I have no clue who this guy was. And I saw on Facebook through, I think, either a creative real estate group or sub two group. Um, for those of you who don't follow those, go check those out. About his credit repair journey. And I just reached out cold because I was very intrigued. I'm like, you know what? I'm looking for another episode of Investor Hell. This dude seems like he's got his stuff together. And how is it that he could help other people get their credit stuff together too? Anyway, so I spoke with Alexander a couple of days yesterday, and he kind of told me a little bit about the story. I didn't want to hear too much because I didn't want to give it all away, but what I asked was to go more in depth today. So, Alexander, thanks for jumping on Investor Hell. I appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to this. And hopefully, God uses you for a beautiful purpose of helping other people through credit repair. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing amazing, amazing. Thank you, Mark, for the opportunity to come onto your platform and, just share my story. I really appreciate it.
Sure. We're all about story. Facts tell and stories sell. I think that when people hear your story, they'd be able to say, well, wait a sec, if this dude can do it, any schmuck. You schmuck, me schmuck, him schmuck, her schmuck. Anybody can do it. So,
No
with that
truer
said,
words have been spoken.
and let me give you a little background. The some of what I was up to in my past and this is one of the reasons why I started the show, made just stupid mistakes when it comes to money. Dumb, schmucky mistakes. And when you started going into some of those yesterday, I was like, all right, cool. This is it. So he made some poor financial decisions. Then he started making some good financial decisions once he started learning the game, the credit repair game, the credit score game. And now we know what we have, we know what Alexander has. And now is it we know what he needs, which is, you said you wanted to help people and you wanted to you wanted to change some hearts, change some minds, change some lives, and make sure that people understand the game. And I remember yesterday, and this is spoiler alert for the end of the episode here. We're going to talk about kind of the future of credit repair, the future of what is that going to look like? The people who are already created the game, how is it that they could change the game without us knowing? And so let's just start at the beginning, which is tell me about how you were sinning investment wise, money wise back in the day. And then how is it that you kind of came to redemption? And then how is it that you were helping other people?
Okay, great. So, yeah, if I had to take it back to when I didn't know much about finances, it was just a matter of money in, and I didn't necessarily look at it as a valuable tool of what I could do with it. It was just, oh, I earned this, so let me spend it on frivolous things, right? And when I think back to my first high-paying job, I went and bought a Ford Expedition just because my old Mitsubishi Diamante got stuck in the snow, right? Did I need to do that? No. It was just snow for about a week and a half, but I was just in that position where, oh, I had money. Let me go ahead and do this with it, right? So that was a bit of the mindset of where I was at, just not really appreciating money or really understanding finance in that sense. So as we fast forward or compound with poor financial decisions, I really didn't understand the power of credit. And I remember having a conversation with an old friend from a long time ago telling me you need to take credit serious. And I didn't care. At the time, I was 18, 19 years old. Who cares about credit at that age, especially at that time? And so then it really just was one of those things that came back to bite me as I got older and there was things that I wanted to do and realizing that, okay, credit and the profile itself is important. That's what people look at to see how worthy you are for bank loans or just for any type of application. They want to know, are they going to get their money back, right? And so I didn't understand that. And so just series of sinning, I would say, tanked my credit profile, and to the point that I was in the 500s. I remember going for a car loan and I needed a cosigner because my credit score was a 513. And so I wasn't going to be able to get a car. I needed a car, but I wasn't going to be able to get a car at that time. And so that's when I understood, okay, how do I get from where I'm at now and improve that to where something so small as not needing a cosigner, right? It wasn't a big deal to me, but I understood that, hey, not everybody needs a cosigner. So there's some people that can just walk in, and because they have this beautiful profile of a series of good decisions and good habits formed over the years, they'll be able to get whatever they want and at lower interest rates than others. So I remember they said my interest rate would have been 12%, 13% or something like that for a car. And I didn't understand. It was just, what's my car payment, right? I was thinking of the mindset of how much is it going to cost me? Can I afford it? So still didn't really understand interest or anything at that point. So now we fast forward to me taking credit serious and really taking a deep dive into what and how I would be able to fix my credit. So looking at my profile, seeing things that were on there, whether it was hard inquiries or, certain accounts or number of accounts, I really had to take a deep dive into understanding what goes into the credit mix, right? So just the factors that they look at. What's my payment history? What's my utilization? What's my credit age? How many credit accounts do I have and how many inquiries do I have? Right. So all that encompasses what your credit profile is. And so I had some things on there that I didn't realize. And so this is going to be interesting to share when we go deeper into how to possibly improve that or what to look for. I didn't understand that there was information on there that was outdated. There was information on there that was inaccurate. There was information on there that, shouldn't still be on there. So just really going into all those factors. I didn't, at that time when I was building, I only had one credit card, and that was a secured credit card for $500, right? So I just established a bank account with a credit union that was right down the street from the job I was working at. And so I just needed an account close by. So I got a $500 credit card because I didn't have credit at that time. So that was my way to build credit. I often always heard start small, get a secured credit, and then build upon that, right? And so then it wasn't until maybe 3 years later that I still had that same $500 credit card. I needed more cards. So it was one of those things where, okay, how do I get more? Looking at my profile, what was on there, I did have collection I was telling you about that I don't remember this collection, right? So when I think back, we all have that moral compass to know, okay, yeah, that is mine. That's not mine. I truthfully didn't remember where this was from,
Okay.
right? And so when I tried to research, what is this? Where is it? I still couldn't pull where it might have came from. So didn't really do anything because I was just of the mindset, I'm not going to pay that. That's not mine. We'll see what happens. And then that came off after a certain time. And I was like, okay, great. I beat it. I don't have to worry about this. This collection, it's gone. I don't know where it's from. Maybe somebody realized this was a mistake. Alexander doesn't owe this, right? And so my score bumps up. I'm excited. Pay down some other things, and then I look at getting more credit cards. So I was able to get two more credit cards, fairly low limits, and then went and got my first five-figure credit card, personal credit,
Hmm.
and that was a Discover card for 13,500. So I got a full disclosure. I still didn't understand the use of credit. I just knew that I had more access to it at that time. So what do I then go do? I then go spend it on school and I put it towards this, not realizing that, hey, I'm going to have to pay this down because that interest factor that used to plague me is still going to come back and kick back towards that. So I have four credit cards at the time now. And then I found myself just whatever I couldn't afford, I put it on credit, which is very common just in our consumer society. We use credit as just a safety net, or just, hey, I'll put it on this. And it's not really my money, it's somebody else's, and I'll make minimum payments, not realizing that that's the trap. And so I fell into the trap. So now I would say that this time point, this is probably about 2020, 2021. And then my son was born. And that's when I realized I finally woke up after, several years of realizing that credit didn't matter. Now it matters, that I need to position myself that I'm able to use credit like how the successful people use it, how the wealthy people, the big players use credit. And so that's when I really started to research how can I get my profile to where that dream of having an 800 credit score, dream of having just a 750. When we look at these charts that show the range that we're in, good, above average, great, right? Just all those things. How do I get to be great? How do I get to an exceptional range? And so that's really when I laser focused in. I did a lot of research on, okay, disputing inaccuracies. I did a lot of research on, okay, what's the best way to pay down without tackling the most amount of interest, like compounding up? How do I remove inquiries? Right. So all that, and it just, I'm a sponge. So I like to consume information. Most people, after a long day at work, they want to just sit back, wind down on the couch and watch TV. I'm the nerd that would look, okay, what's something new that I can learn towards what my goal is, right? And so I would just spend time researching information, reading articles, or just listening to other tidbits of social media of, okay, this aspect or this strategy. And so I'm an action taker. I took information that I learned and applied it. And so then what I in the group that you were talking about, I had really started to chronicle when I saw my score make changes and leaps and bounds. I started to screenshot. Okay, so now it went from
You
five.
documented the process after that when that started.
So I started documenting last, I want to say August, September
Okay.
is when I started to. Oh wait, okay, let me screenshot. So I'm gonna be putting together that and just posting it just so that people can see this is where I was here. And so I believe one of the pictures was where I was at November 7th. I had a 617 credit score. And then March 7th, I had an 804 credit score, about 187 points. So it was just a culmination of, okay, step by step, what do I need to do, right? Who do I need to talk to? What type of strategies? But I would say if it came down to it, I disputed inaccurate information. I don't know if you've looked at your credit report, but there's something interesting about all the data that's on there and us not realizing it if we're not paying attention. So it's out of sight, out of mind. But then when I looked at it, I would see my name not spelled correctly, right? I would see addresses that I don't live at. I would see phone numbers that aren't even mine. All of that stuff and realizing and learning is attached to some account somewhere, right? And so the quickest way to start to clean up is to remove our attachment to certain accounts, right? So if I remember a phone number. Now, I've only had three phone numbers in my life outside of house numbers, right? And I still remember two house numbers. When I looked at my profile, I had 17 different phone numbers attached to my
Ooh.
account. And I was just wowed by the fact of where did all this come from, right? And so what I then did, disputed, right? Okay. And so what it came down to was that and this was actually in legal information, that information has to be accurate and verifiable, right? And so when I learned that, okay, hey, this name, my name is Alexander, Alexander. Now, a funny loophole would be I can dispute the accuracy of anything that's attached to a name showing up on my profile that is Alex or Alexander missing an R, so Alexander. When I saw that, I said, okay, well, now I know this can be removed. I don't know what's attached to it, but it's gone. It's out of here. So when learning all those different tips and strategies, it made it just a game of what is it that's mine versus what is it that I can dispute, because by, you know, legal terms, that shouldn't be there if it's not accurate. Right. And so when I was telling you about the collection that had disappeared, it came back. It came back. And so it was one of those things where, okay, I'm doing all these things to try and boost my score, and then a collection pops back on. And so my score dropped 55 points. And this was one of those things where, okay, how do I get this off as I'm doing everything to get my score up, right?
Yep.
Because now I'm actually serious about improving my score, the power of being able to have a strong profile because of what I want to do with the business.
You were done sinning financially for the most part.
Oh, I was done. I was done. It was just a matter of, okay, I'm ready to do right. I'm ready to do right. And so when that
And that's when
collection
God looks
came in,
down, we're like, good boy.
exactly,
Well done.
exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And so it was a matter of doing some more research. So I live in the state of Maryland. And so there's actual laws that show the statute of limitations on the ability to collect a debt is 2 years. And so when I look back and researched this information, I actually came across the letter. I put it somewhere that was going to go into my story, right? That put online. It was just 2 years and 4 months since they had tried to collect, or since it reported. So that right there, I had learned, okay, well, it's over 2 years, right? And so I went in, filed a dispute letter, sent the complaint, and this was November. Actually, I have to look back, pardon me, because I took that screenshot also
Sure.
of when that.
While you're checking this out, how much time do you think in money, resources, do you think it cost you to bump your score up 187 points or whatever it was that one from November to March? I know it took 4 months. I get that, but you weren't in front of your computer 24/7, 4 months. So how much time do you think it actually took, and how much expense do you think it actually took to raise it almost 200 points?
So, good question. The expense part to actually go into raising my credit, I didn't hire anybody outside like, hey, can you look at this? Can you fix this? Right. So I really went towards the money that I spent paying down my utilization, or, eliminating this bill. So it really went towards what my monthly expenditure was for my consumer debt. But in terms of understanding the loopholes, I didn't invest anything in that. So it is a cost-free method in terms of financial. The only cost was my time, right? So it's, you either can spend your money or you could spend your time. At that time, I was willing to spend my time to learn how to do this. So let me see, let me find the screenshot, because it was, and this was so cool because when I was using Credit Karma and I saw the notification that my score had shot up. So it was shortly after, I want to say it was November 9th, because what I did, how I got that collection removed, after learning that it was outside of the statute of limitations, I wrote my dispute letter, and do you mind if I read it to you?
Oh, please
Okay.
share
All
with
right.
the audience.
To whom it may concern, I'm writing to file a formal complaint against Asset Care due to multiple violations of my consumer rights under federal law. The actions of Asset Care infringe upon my rights as provided by the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act and the Fair Credit Reporting Act. The specific violations are as follows. Violation of 12 CFR 1006.34B. They failed to provide me clear and complete validation notice in the initial communication as required by 12 CFR 1006.34B5. This regulation mandates that consumers receive all information necessary to understand an alleged debt, and the failure to provide this information has hindered my ability to understand or dispute the debt. Violation of 12 CFR 1006.34C for I. Additionally, asset care did not include necessary disclosures regarding my rights to dispute the debt, request verification, or other essential information specified. The omission is a clear breach of my right, and it has deprived me of vital information that could have influenced my actions regarding the debt. And so there was just more stuff. And then I put in how it's hindered my ability to be able to make financial decisions because this collection popped back up. So I kind of put in a little bit of, a human story. It's inaccurate. They didn't provide me this stuff, and now it's costing me now, right?
Yep.
And so that was on 11/14 that it was submitted. So if I go back and I look at that date, by November 18th, that collection was removed.
Wow,
And
4 days.
that's when I saw on Credit Karma, great news, a collection has been removed from your report. And
So
so
Credit Karma would probably cost about what, $30 a month, something like that?
no, Credit Karma is free. Credit
Okay,
Karma
so
is
you
free.
went on to Credit Karma because it was free, and you went in and you went through all, which is I'm going to say point number one: remove all inaccurate information, and dispute
Mhm.
all information. And by
Right.
the way,
So I didn't, sorry to clarify, I didn't use Credit Karma to do the disputes. I used Credit Karma just to be able to see my credit profile.
got it.
And so that's when I would see my Vantage score because there's different scoring models. So we have a FICO score and then we have Credit Karma and other banking that has may use a Vantage score. So that was just really the easiest app that I used that I knew of. That was the first app that I knew as far as a credit viewing app, right? I can see all my accounts, all my data, all my information. But then I went to the CFPB, which is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That's who I did my disputes with, right, for that collection.
FTB. So the reason why I'm asking is because I want to make sure that these are in the details of the video. People can comment, people can, hey, how would I do this? Who would I go to? So Credit Karma, CFPB, and then also that letter that you just posted. Was that a letter that you wrote from a resource that you had found, or was that something that you had to specifically go and research the laws in order to find out which things they were violating, and then just punched in whatever they were violating and then push forward? How did that work? How did that letter become?
Right. So it was a combination of both. I did look at, Fair Credit Reporting Act laws, and I just looked at consumer rights. And then I also just did simple Google searches, how to remove, right? And then just went down the rabbit hole there. And so that's when I found some research that showed, consumer laws if you have this pop up. And then I went in and reviewed. And so it's just certain laws. So it made it very simple for me to find the information when I knew what I was looking for. And then I used, well, America's best friend, the world's best friend, ChatGPT, to format this dispute letter
I
to go
laugh
ahead.
because it's like, dude, it's my assistant. My wife calls it my work wife because it's like, dude, it saves so much freaking time. I
Absolutely,
can have
absolutely.
literally hundreds and thousands of people working for me
Hmm.
in one program.
Yeah, yeah. And so it was. I still make the joke because I did the free version of ChatGPT and then I invested in the $20 version. That's still the best $20 that
Yeah,
I've spent.
huge.
That's
I
the
feel like
best $20 I can spend a month, right? And
yeah,
so this
yeah.
the amount of availability and what it's able to do for us. It just takes a load off. And so it formulated all that. And I had to go in and proof it a little bit and humanize it and add some sprinkles. But for the most part, the meat and potatoes of it was all done. Was all done. And so when I had submitted that, and then I just waited. And so it was very uplifting. And it was just like that relief that, hey, okay, this has worked. That was the first big moment of, okay, this is real,
Yeah.
right? The small wins that we look at along the way, I would have never imagined that, okay, this would one work and then two that fast,
Yeah.
right? Because it's okay, there may be some truth, but we may have like that limited belief of thinking, all right, well, maybe it works for other people, but maybe not for me, right? Like just that sense of
But that was
maybe
that was proof.
that was proof. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a proof that, okay, you're on to something here, right? And so then just continue to look at credit mix. Okay, so I had a good balance. Then it was just my utilization, right? So I was paying down. And then that Discover card that I was telling you about, I remember looking at how to go about tackling my consumer debt, right? So you hear different strategies, snowball method. You tackle the one that has the lowest balance first, knock that out, then take that, put it towards the next. That was a good strategy. You look at the one that maybe has the highest interest, try and pay that down since it's on a balance. Whatever works for you, but the whole common goal is that you want the debt to be gone, right? And so then I remember looking on my statement and it would say, this is the balance, right? If you make the minimum payment, it'll take you this amount of years. And then this is the total amount that you would have paid by the end of that. My Discover balance, it would have taken me 57 years if I just kept making the minimum payments on the balance that I had. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I'm making $500 a month payment, sometimes $600. 300 of that was going to interest.
Mm.
And I'm thinking, I'm never going to be able to pay this off. So I then went to ChatGPT. How can I go about getting this reduced, right? And so it was like a financial hardship, and this is what you could say. And it was like, okay, cool, I could say that. But then I had to put my personality into it. And so I just remember getting a laugh when I was talking to the the person on the phone that said, "Hey, this card, I'm making $500-600 payments a month, and it seems like it's not making a dent into the balance, right? I know my minimum payment is this, but it's still saying that I'm going to be paying this for 57 more years." Now, this wasn't to sound dark or morbid, but I was like, in 57 years, I might not even be here, right? Like, I probably won't even need to use this credit card in 57 years. So, what can we do today to reduce this so that it could be more digestible for me to make payments on, right? And so, I didn't let my pride get in the way that, hey, oh, well, no, you can't ask them for help. It was, no, it's a card that I'm not using, right? I'm just paying it down because I didn't want to accrue any more interest on it. And so then they put a plan together that said, okay, so we can do like it wasn't like a finance, it might have been a financial hardship. We'll call it that, right? And so then what they did is that they lowered my interest from the variable of 28% or whatever to a flat rate of 16%. And then they would make it that for 12 months. But then the one stipulation was that I can't use the card. I was like, I don't want to use the card. I've been paying on a card and not using it. I don't care to use this card. Right. So just reduce the amount of interest that is accumulating each month so that I can continue to just get this under, five figures. Right. And then I was able to do that within 2 months. So this was probably around October, November that I was able to put that plan in place. And then the last thing that kind of brought it all together in terms of knocking out my utilization across the board, because my score had shot up now that collection was off. Credit Karma will oftentimes show you things that you qualify for, right? Like, hey, guaranteed approval odds for this credit card or guaranteed approval odds for this personal loan. And then I remember talking to somebody in the community and just ask them like, hey, what is it that you do to, eliminate this, right? And then just the biggest gem that I got was learning that a personal loan doesn't count against your utilization. And I was like, wait a second. So I can take out a personal loan, knock out my consumer debt, and then that won't actually register as more utilization. He was like, no, because it's not a credit card. I
Okay,
was
hang on.
like,
Time out. That's something you don't hear every day.
correct. And here I was thinking, leverage, take out debt to pay off other debt, and then that will shoot this up, and then you just now are paying this off. And so this was a lower interest rate than the accumulated interest rates across all these other cards, whether it was 19, 23, 28. So I was like, wait a second. Okay. And that right there. So I took out that personal loan. And
I'm still processing. Like, why is it that people don't do that more often?
I would say it's just not knowing, right? If you don't know what you
Like,
don't
time
know,
this
you
thing out
can't.
and be like, hang on, I gotta text my wife. No, just kidding.
And that
Honey,
was
we've got
really
a problem and we have a solution too. No, just
we
no.
yeah we and that was a solution for how I took my utilization from 97% and I had dropped it to 30% within one reporting period. Then it went down to 8% within the next reporting period. And then in March, it was down to one less than 1% utilization across the board. And so that was my score had then jumped from it was about a 770, and then it went up to the 804 that I felt.
Wow.
And that's when I felt the like the shining on me, like
Yeah. Thank you,
you've
God.
done it. You've done
God
it.
is so good.
And
Glory to
so
him, man. He's the one that makes it
oh,
all happen.
oh that was exactly what I did. I just started just professing, just thank you God for bringing me here. Like I know you wouldn't put me in a situation that I couldn't handle. You wouldn't give me more than I could handle, right? And so it was just a matter of following the plan, right? The path I didn't know. I just knew the plan was to improve my credit, but I didn't know what the path looked like. I didn't know what I was going to have to do and discover, but I just knew what the end goal was, right? So that I was really as of 14 days ago now. And so then, to the point I was then able to now take that score and utilize it for business, right? And so what I do is transactional lending, and with the business, which I had to personally guarantee. And so now that's the biggest thing. The banks, if it's a new business, which mine was, I had formed it in December, they don't have any income to base it off of. So we have to personally guarantee for our LLC, right? So it's okay, this business doesn't have tax returns or anything. Are you going to be able to account for this? What's your profile look like? And I was like, oh, I'm glad that you asked.
Yeah.
My profile looks like this.
Yeah. That's
And
funny.
so it was just that moment of, wait, so now I'm in that position where if I wanted to walk in and get something, oh yeah, Mr. Wallace, okay, great. Yeah, no, you can have whatever you want, right? So it wasn't a let me show off. It was just, oh, it's a
Freedom,
little
dog.
different now. It's
Yeah.
a little different now.
All right, make sure you stick around for part two, which will be coming out soon. We're going to finishing up our conversation about the businesses that Alexander was performing, that was being a part of and doing, and then also the changing of the game, like we talked about that spoiler alert at the beginning of the episode. So stick around and wait for part two.